guys, and welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. On today's episode, we are talking about business and entrepreneurship, which is something that everyone kind of dreams of, but sometimes they just don't know where to start, where to get the financing, or other obstacles that maybe are in our head that get in our way. So my guest today is an entrepreneur herself, is the CEO and founder of a magazine, Raine Magazine, which focuses on fashion, technology, and entrepreneurship. And so she's going to come on and tell us her story and also give us tips of how to awaken your entrepreneurial spirit. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Nova Lorraine. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. So tell us about like your journey up to the creation of Raine Magazine.
Okay. I'm going to give you the abbreviated version.
Okay.
I actually started my career journey in academics, and I was pursuing my PhD in clinical psychology in Connecticut. That's where I grew up. I was born in Jamaica and became a citizen when I was about 24.
Wow.
And so first generation to go to college in this country. And that was my dream. I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to help children, and that was that. And then I graduated college. I took a year off, started working, and I just, for whatever reason, one day I came home from work and I said, if I could do anything in the world, what would it be? And instantly in my head popped fashion design. Now I'm going to set the stage because I was in the middle of Connecticut.
Yeah.
I was from a very traditional Caribbean homes. Therefore, you could pick 5 careers: law, medicine, education, engineering, and maybe, nursing. I'll lump that in there with medicine.
Okay.
Like, right? So that was it. That was it. Okay. And I did not have any mentors or anyone around me that was an artist, a designer, anything, but that just came to me. And so I shared that with my husband. He was very supportive. I took an art class. I then started researching design schools, but this was this all of a sudden thing. And I had this now 4 or 5 year plan on, becoming a doctor and studying clinical psychology. So I was like, nope, I'm going to apply to design school, but I'm going to apply to grad school as well. And that's what I did. And I got in to both design school and grad school. And I said, yeah, I'll do this little design thing when I retire. I'm going to go to grad school. And I was getting married, and my husband was going to be staying in Connecticut for a couple of years. And I was like, nope, I'm going to be by my husband. That's it. Yeah. So I started grad school and I loved it. And a couple months in, one day, it literally as if I walked into this wall, but I stood dead in my tracks. And it was as if like I had this vision of, this is what your life would be like if you decided to pursue this path, but this is what you need to be doing. And it was like this quick little vision. Wow. And the words came to me like, you're going to help people through your love of fashion. And I and then it went away. And then I went to class, no big deal, ignored it. I kid you not. I kept over and over, I'm driving to class and I would hear, you got to go to New York. You got to go to New York. Because I applied to schools in New York.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what is this? And it just would not go away. And when I finally had the discussion with my husband, like, I need to go to New York and I need to pursue this. Like, it was just like this overwhelming, urge. And again, super supportive. My parents were supportive. And so now I had to go to my directors of the program and explain why I'm leaving the program early.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, I did end up leaving early with my master's, moved to New York, went to FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, studied fashion design, and then moved out of New York for about 3 years, studying entrepreneurship, marketing, and working in corporate, to return back to New York to launch my fashion company, which was my dream. And I did that and started consulting with other founders and creatives. And that journey as an entrepreneur, that roller coaster ride, especially as a creative entrepreneur, is what gave me the aha moment that allowed me to bring that ideal of helping people together with my love of fashion. And that's where the idea of Raine came to me. And I said, this is it. Yeah. And I wanted to create a platform for others like myself that wanted to take their gifts and passions and turn it into their livelihood. And most of the individuals that I was meeting wanted to take what they loved and impact the community for the greater good. And it could have been a local, national, or global community, but they wanted to impact others. And it was something that was sort of outside themselves. And I said, I want to create something that was not based on who you knew or not based on how popular you were, but just your story and the product or service you're offering, and introduce that to the world and allow people to really find these hidden gems, but then also give these entrepreneurs a platform to take their business to the next level.
I love it. So just to back up a little bit, when you said you were hearing voices.
Not voices. It was more like, it was like my inner
It was
voice.
like, okay, so it's like, because I've heard people say that, and I'm like, well, what does it sound like? Does it sound like a past loved one? It was just a feeling you had of like, you have to do this.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was something that I knew that I probably sort of just pushed aside, and you know, and we do that often, and I still do it, and I have to check myself when I do it. It's something that seems so outlandish or so out of the blue, or something that seems such a hard feat to accomplish, or you can see the goal, but you can't see it through the trees. There's so many trees in front of you. You're like, no, forget it. I'm just going to turn around and walk the other way. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
And we kind of just bury it back there. And then you hear this little like, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And you could either choose to listen to your inner self or not. And it was just, you know, when I think back as a teenager, I would always sketch and design dresses. I didn't know how to do it, but I would always come up with ideas. I was fascinated with fashion magazines. I always loved to get dressed up. It was just something that was a part of my DNA, but I just didn't have that outlet. I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have the mentorship. It just wasn't something that was a part of my everyday world. And so to see myself in that role without being able to connect the dots was just like, it just wasn't conceivable. But I think that when there's something that is really a part of our calling and purpose, and if you choose to listen to your inner, you know, that inner self, that little child, you know, the voices, whatever you want to call it. But I do believe that it's internal. I believe that sometimes we know truly what's best for ourselves if we allow ourselves to take the time to connect with ourselves, right? And if you're in a more positive state of mind, it's easier to do that. So I loved everything about my program, my classmates. I was newly married. It was like life was good. And so I think that was what allowed that to come through, because I was in a more positive state. I wasn't like in survival mode, right? Like life was good. I just wasn't like, you know. And then what I'm realizing is that there are times where we're just like chugging along, and then boom, something hits us that literally changes our course. And sometimes it's a physical event like this, like we're going through. You know, sometimes it's a life, you know, circumstance. It could be a death. It could be anything, you know. We just don't know what it will be that's going to make us just stop and think. And for me at that moment, it was the passion inside trying to say, nope, you like this, but you love that. So go to that.
And they always say, like, if you're, you know, we all kind of are brought here and we have a purpose, and, you know, sometimes we don't find our purpose, but they also say if you're on the wrong path, the doors will constantly shut. Things don't seem to work out. They're frustrating. Life isn't easy. It's a struggle. So I think it's important for people to really focus on finding their passion, finding their purpose. But that leads to another thing, because a lot of people will say, well, I'm passionate about this, but I have a mortgage to pay. I've got a family. So what do you say to that entrepreneur that maybe has those liabilities in front of them?
Yeah, well, a couple things. First of all, I do think you can do your passion and it not be your livelihood. I think they can coexist. And if you feel like you're not meeting your basic needs, you're never going to really be able to tap into that passion or even call it a passion, because you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to bring more guilt than joy. And so it's really I think that it's finding a way to bring that into your life. And it could be part-time, it could be half part-time. It doesn't necessarily have to be everything that you're doing, because we're multidimensional, we're multi-talented, we have lots of gifts and talents and loves, and I don't think we only have one passion. I have a passion for food and dance as well. I love creating. And so I think that it's choosing which of those passions to bring into our life, and can one of those things become our livelihood? Like, that's the best of both worlds, right? We're just getting up to play. And so I think it's important for those that want to be able to move in that direction, is to develop that support system. If you're in a relationship, go to that individual and say, this is what I need to be the best version of me. And how can we do this together? Let's figure it out. Doesn't mean we downsize. Doesn't mean we move to a new city. Doesn't mean we move in with mom and dad. Like, what can we do? Doesn't mean I do this during the daytime and then I take a part-time job at night. Because if I'm not happy, then this isn't going to be a happy situation, because eventually it spills out, right? And so it's looking for that support, being truly honest and, with yourself, which I think is the first thing. And because I ignored it, I was like, this fashion thing, even though I had the opportunity. I took the art class, I applied to design school, they said yes, here's the money. And I'm like, whatever, and it was like, oh, no, I was planning this other thing for so long, and this is guaranteed. I don't know what this is going to do. I don't know what anyone's going to think if I switch to that. Then we all, we start thinking about all the reasons why we shouldn't. And we talk ourselves into this more clear, safe path that's acceptable, or whatever it is, right? That meets the expectations of whoever is on our list, right? And so, but it doesn't always align with what we want in here. And so I think we all have a way of contributing to the world. Like, I could be a landscaper or a gardener or a chef or a painter or an architect or the founder of Google. Like, we all have something within us that's going to contribute to and help others. It can be, I can be a babysitter, and I am the best babysitter on this planet, but that is my calling, to watch, to care for others' children. You know what I'm saying? It could be anything. But when we are doing something we love and we're passionate about, it usually then brings that financial reward.
Yes. And no, and that's exactly right. And so many, I think, given the climate now where a lot of people are either out of work or a lot of companies are doing pay cuts. And, I feel like everybody's kind of sitting on that great idea, whatever it is to them, maybe a need that they need. Like, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to start a new skincare line. How do I start? How do I take the risk without risking it all? Like, what would you say to that person?
Start asking questions. Okay. Like, literally reaching out to other, skincare entrepreneurs. I mean, we have social media. There's no excuse now, right? And reaching out to other founders and seeing what they loved and what they didn't about their experience. Also volunteering and interning with them. You can never be too old to be an apprentice. I'm sorry. Like, that's just an ego thing.
That's great. I like that.
Yeah, you can volunteer, you could be the intern, the assistant for the experience, and say, oof, no, this definitely wasn't for me. Or you might say, I don't necessarily want to do my own skincare line, but I want to help other skincare lines with my marketing skills, or I want to do graphic design and logos for skincare lines. So, that's the space you want to be in, but you may not necessarily know what your role is within that space. Right? So I would say, just get in there, talk to the people that are doing it, shadow those individuals so you can truly see if this is something that you like. And get on the phone, call, ask questions. People are willing to talk and help others that are following the path that they took. And I know a founder he's a dermatologist. He decided to launch a skincare line. Brilliant guy, had a phenomenal concept. And he was juggling the skincare company and his practice. And ultimately, he had to downsize the skincare company, and just focus on his practice, because that was his livelihood, to take care of his family. But phenomenal product, great concept, but he just went out there. He didn't have the experience or the mentorship
Yeah.
or anything like that. So that's just to show you that even with resources and a great idea, without the experience, um, you know, the experience is almost more valuable because you can better utilize those resources or reshape the idea to be something that's executable and sustainable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you are doing your magazine, which highlights these people, what are some of the key characteristics that they all kind of have that maybe makes them successful?
That's a great question. Internally we say, are they rain ready?
I love
Are
it.
they, or as my daughter, are they about to pop off, as my daughters would say?
I like it too.
We look at the story. Is it a great story?
Okay.
The founder, is this an individual that we would recommend? Like, I feel that a great product is backed by a great founder. And that
Yeah,
story helps.
absolutely.
Yeah. And it really shows if this idea or product will succeed. And it may not look like it looks like now, but it will still be there 5, 10 years from now. And
Hmm.
so we do look at the founder, we look at that story, and we look at the visual storytelling. And I'll tell you why. Because if you get the publicity, but you aren't ready to take on the business or the inquiries, maybe the partnerships or customers or investors, then no one wins. And if a founder took the time or their team took the time to invest in that visual storytelling, that means they've gone the extra mile to really understand what it takes to be a successful business. So we look at their marketing collateral. That may be their website or their social media page. It may be a press release or whatever it is. How are they telling this story? And those combined, and then also, have they achieved a recent accomplishment or milestone that sort of pegs them on this upward trajectory? And we like to be the Sherlock Holmes of media. So if they're already in vogue, they don't need to be in Raine. They've already like skipped over, and Vogue is going to take them where Vogue is going to take them. We
Okay.
want to be that stepping stone to get them to the Vogue or the Forbes or what have you. We want to really
Gotcha.
discover these newbies. We want to like uncover those gems. We gave Kendall Jenner her first solo fashion cover, like high fashion cover.
Really?
We Priyanka Chopra her first US magazine cover. We
Wow.
interviewed Mark Cuban when he launched his book. I think it was the business of no, so it was the sport as a business. It was bringing in aspects of sports and how it pertains to business. Damon John, in the early days of Shark Tank, Ben Carson a couple months before he announced his presidency. These are the stories that and individuals that we look for, and then we really enjoy seeing them take off.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's so exciting. So how did you, let's talk about like Kendall Jenner. How did you, so this was her first high fashion cover?
Yeah, so she did a Teen Vogue cover with her sister.
Okay.
And a couple months later, she did our photo shoot, and we did a big book signing at Barnes and Noble. And if you just Google Kendall Jenner, you'll see, and Raine, you'll see those early shots of her. And her mom and sister surprised her at the book signing, and it was a lot of fun.
That's
But
great.
we have research editors that are looking for these key markers, and it's either myself or the research editors that would say, "Hey, this is someone that we should be paying attention to." And sometimes we miss them by just a month. So for example, Missy Copeland, the ballerina,
Yeah.
we were like, oh, we need to cover her. We need to cover her. And then sort of like kept getting put off. And by the time we reached out to her team, everyone was reaching out to her. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
so sometimes if we wait a little too long, we sort of miss it. Priyanka Chopra, I came across a Twitter post that she was the first woman of color that did a guest campaign. And she didn't even live in the US at the time. She was still in India full time and, doing Bollywood. And so I started doing some more research about her, and I said, whoa, if she got this campaign for this all-American brand and she's not American, I said, this is someone to watch. Like, we need to find out who this person
Yes.
is, track them down, talk to their team and see what's coming up. And then sure enough, she's we know, how amazing
Yeah.
she's doing now here in
Yeah.
the US.
I love her. I think she's just so
Love
fabulous.
her too. She's amazing.
So how was Mark Cuban?
Mark Cuban was how he is on the show is exactly how he is on the phone. Like, he's to
Oh,
the point.
hilarious.
He is he's funny, witty, uh, very keen when it comes to an opportunity. If he thinks it has potential, he will act on it right away.
Uh-huh.
And he's just a smart guy that has the ability to see something before it comes to fruition, like before it blossoms, and able to take advantage of that. And he's just a good person. Like, he truly is. I mean, I don't know him personally, but just from interviewing him and seeing how consistent he is as an on television personality, he is very much a authentic individual.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted to ask about him. He just seems like such a fun guy.
Yeah, but he's very serious about business. Like,
Yeah. Right. No, well, that's why he's been so successful.
right.
So a big part of, especially talking about the show he's on, Shark Tank, is of getting a company off the ground and really getting noticed is being able to raise capital.
Yeah.
Do you have some advice on that? Somebody has a great widgets company and they want to launch, but they don't have the money.
Yes, I would say find a niche or white space, which is a little segment that there's a need, but no one has really tapped into that need yet.
Okay.
And really be able to demonstrate why your niche audience urgently needs this product or service. Like, why are they what problem is it solving? And is it truly your bullseye audience that you're going after? And then also spend time on your pitch. And when you are doing a pitch, you are looking at your market share, your business model, your revenue model, and analyzing all of those statistics and numbers to see, is this something that can scale and grow? And then focus on a proof of concept. All right. Will someone actually purchase your product? So investors are interested, but they want to know who else is interested. Are customers
Of course.
interested? So if you can get to the point where you have sales and you've demonstrated that, yes, here's this customer base, here's the need, and I've proven that this works because they're willing to purchase it, then someone is going to be more willing to take a chance on you because they know that with an injection of capital, all they're doing is helping you scale. But first you have to prove that it can work at whatever level you can prove. You don't have to be the most polished company or have everything figured out. But if you figured out that, here, I have this great broom and I've already sold it to 100 people, can you give me this amount of money so I can sell it to 100,000 people? Then it's a lot easier to raise that capital.
Right. No, that absolutely makes sense. So what about so starting out, it's really, you've got to put skin in the game.
You absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And however you can do that, I say, look around for your resources, people, time, and money. Mm-hmm. So if you have the time, but you don't have all the skills, find the people. Or if you don't have the financial resources, look for creative ways of funding your business. And when I first got my investments, when I launched my fashion company, I put together this really nice formal letter with my anticipated projections and got this beautiful stationery, and I mailed it to 100 family, like a combination of family and friends, and asked them to invest in me. And I was overwhelmed by their response, because think about it. Our closest circle knows us, they trust us, it's less of a hurdle to convince them to invest. Mm-hmm. But then if you put the information and the research and all, the proof of concept in front of them, it's almost a no-brainer if they have the resources. And so that's how I launched my fashion company. It was really seed capital through family and friends. And it was a loan, with a percent, payback. It was, it was an official investment, but I use my family and friends. Of
Wow.
course, you have credit cards, but those sometimes can spiral out of control.
Yeah.
If you focus on your credit, then you can get a line of credit that you can pay back with revenue, that comes in. So there's different ways to fund your business outside of an angel investor or venture capital. Once you get to an angel investor, it's a different type of pitch. A VC is another level of pitching. So also understanding who is your customer at the investment level, and what do they want and what do they want to see, and tailor your pitch to them.
No, it's fascinating. Absolutely. Because I think a lot of people just kind of get overwhelmed of, I've got this idea for something and I just kind of don't know where to start or what to do. And it's like, I always tell them, from my experiences, don't think of all the steps from A to Z. Just think of A and B. And once you accomplish that, go to C and D and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And, each doing something every day, it's like the compound interest of that as well. So
Yeah,
and social media too. I mean, you can take ads for, pretty cheap, but obviously you're not going to reach as big of an audience without as much money. But there are a lot of ways to definitely do that. But if somebody, I hear so much, and this is probably 95, maybe more percent of our country or our world, is they're working in these dead-end jobs, putting in all these hours. There's no guarantee for them. Maybe there's a guarantee of a salary and health insurance, but that could be taken away at any given moment. They feel entrepreneurial. They look at entrepreneurs in magazines like yours or on TV, and they want to live that life. Like, how do we awaken that entrepreneurial spirit?
So I would also say illusion is that success is overnight, and just realize that most entrepreneurial success is like a 10-year journey. Okay. Yeah. But you never hear that. You just hear about like, oh, I'm successful. I started to be an entrepreneur. Decided to be an entrepreneur yesterday. That's not the case. These were seeds that were being planted, like you said, the daily grind until you got to that tipping point. And then, okay, all of a sudden, you're on the top of the mountain, shouting off, my successes. So with that said, know that the entrepreneurial journey is that it is a journey. And if you are okay with enjoying the journey, then it's a lot easier to take the first step. And if your first goal or my priority is, I want to be a millionaire, therefore I want to be an entrepreneur, it might work for some, but you're usually working longer hours for yourself than you are for someone else. And burnout on this journey is very real. Yeah. And so if you're not inspired when you wake up in the morning to do that next task for the next project, for the next day and the next day, without that consistent, reliable flow of revenue, and you're not doing it for the right reasons, a lot of people decide to step off that path or get off the train because they're like, oh my gosh, forget it. This wasn't worth it. I thought I was gonna be a millionaire in like 6 months or at least 16 months.
Yeah, right.
So I think if you can envision, for those that are interested in taking this journey, if you can think about what is it that's on your want list, or I heard this term yesterday, what is your heart wish?
Oh, I like that.
And just take those first 2 steps. Like, who cares if it turns into a business or not? And see how that feels. And then let that guide you to the next step. Because sometimes when we think of step number 10 out of 100, step number 10 is too intimidating to even go after that.
Yeah.
And so maybe if, let's say I'm using the example of, I want to be a landscaper. Well, maybe make a little garden, maybe in your kitchen, outside your house. See if you even like that. There's no risk there, right? There's no risk. None. Then maybe invite a friend over and say, well, what do you think? They're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Or they're like, that's not so good. Well, get on YouTube and get better.
Yeah.
Until people want what you're doing, they want to pay for that skill that you have or that product that you have. Because if it's good, people will want to buy it, and they will want to share and tell other people about it. When I come across a product and it's amazing, I'm like the biggest cheerleader.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, you
yeah.
got it, got it right. It's just like, oh my gosh. So if it's good, people will find it, they will share it. And so focus on developing that skill or that talent as opposed to, oh, I have to create this empire of enterprise of 1,000 employees. Oh my gosh, I don't even know the first thing about insurance. That's, you're way
Right.
too far ahead. Way too far ahead.
Yeah,
You know,
that type of thought process will keep you stuck. For
yeah.
sure.
I mean, Jeff Bezos started with selling books,
Mm-hmm.
and most people don't even remember that. But he still had to sell one book.
Yeah.
So, and even before he decided to do that, he had to do the research about online commerce because it wasn't all the craze that it is now.
Yeah.
And he had to take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So also be true to yourself. And if you are not a risk taker, but you're still entrepreneurial, there are so many entrepreneurs that are looking for team members that are entrepreneurial. And
Yeah.
that's just as valuable. Everyone can't have a solo business. Everyone, most people need a team of people, especially as they grow. And you could be a part of that team and still be a part of that journey without the risk of being the owner of that journey. And so that's another option, looking for another entrepreneurial venture or startup or small to medium sized business where you can make a difference, where your input can count, where your ideas can come to life without you taking that risk of the financing and the funding and all of that. If that's not you, don't go there,
Yeah.
but look to support someone else that's looking for someone like you.
Right. No, it's exactly right. And what do you say to people that are in a job that they're not really crazy about, but they want to stay. They don't want to take how do they start enjoying their journey working for somebody else?
You know, I think most of us, when I remember working for 9 to 5, and sometimes it would feel like torture. Like you're just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And you're watching the clock and you're just like, especially if you're in a cubicle, and I love looking outside
Yeah.
but if you stay present in that moment and in that task and you do the best that you can do, you are literally focused on giving yourself to that project or that task. And that in itself will reward you. And that feels good. That sort of exchange of energy, per se,
Yes.
feels good. Then that usually will give you recognition. And then that feels good. And then you may discover new skills that you have, or you may, be promoted to a team where there's, you meet your new best friend, or so focus on where you are right now because you're there for a reason. And maybe it's to meet someone, to change someone's life, to grow, to learn something new, to develop a new skill, to get over a fear, whatever it is, and say, okay, what is it that I'm going to learn from this experience? Maybe it's
I like
just
that.
you hate filing and that was what you needed to learn. Right? But be the best filer on the planet so they can move you out of filing.
Yeah.
Or to like,
Yeah.
whoa, she's, or he's so valuable. Let's try you on this. Come in with a positive attitude, and sometimes if you're just coming in, forget the task, but if you're coming in knowing that you can make others feel good, maybe it's just that, maybe it's just let's say you just have one person you're working next to and you choose to develop that relationship or that connection, and then the task just becomes a task, but it's worth it because you get to see this cool person every day,
Yeah.
so I think there are many reasons why you can stay in a job that's not necessarily your passion if you again look at the journey and what is it that you are taking from this, but know when that journey is over, it's time to move on.
Well,
Just move on.
I mean, that's amazingly said. What about because I hear this too from my friends that work corporate jobs, that one person that just seems to ruin it all, like that one a-hole that just you're like, it's just this one person that makes me just not want to be there because I hear this consistently.
Oh yeah, I can relate to that. I remember one experience. I literally would I'd get out of my car in the parking lot and I would have to say like a little prayer to myself as I would walk into the building and say, please don't let me say something that I'm going to regret.
Yeah.
but what saved me in that situation, even though the environment I felt was very toxic due to this one person, was the individual who I was working for. And I had so much respect and admiration for this individual, and we had such a strong friendship. That's what I focused on. I looked for the positive, the one positive thing in that situation, and poured all my energy into that. And so that negative person that was literally intentionally trying to rile me up every day, they became invisible because I chose not to feed into that. I chose not to allow them to see the impact it was having on me. And I was still like inside, I was like, ooh. But my days became bearable because I was really focused on the positive impact I was making for this other person that I was working for.
Yeah, no, that's greatly said. Yeah, it's that was very well said. I couldn't have said it myself. Better myself. I can't even speak today. I'm like, ah. So your magazine also talks about not only entrepreneurship, but fashion and technology. Can you go into some of those areas of stories that you guys kind of feature?
Oh, yeah. So we look for rising talents as it relates to fashion, culture, and technology. In terms of fashion, it could be beauty, accessories, technology. So it could be a fashion tech company, maybe software or gadgets. And then, of course, designers, stylists, authors.
Yeah.
And then in terms of culture, that umbrella covers entertainment, travel, and art. So every issue we look for an artist to feature, a destination, because we are inspired by beautiful places as
Yeah.
well, right? And entertainers. So they could be comedians, athletes, singers, dancers. So that fits under the culture section. And then, of course, food. Let me not leave out the food. We try to cover
Right.
a food story every
Yeah.
so often. And in terms of technology, again, it's looking for companies that are changing the game. And it may be a software company or a wearable tech or some sort of gadget that we're featuring. And so that's the gamut.
I mean, that's amazing. So the companies that you kind of feature do you kind of see them take off shortly after?
There are so many. Fitbit is a success story of ours.
What? Let's get
Yes.
into
And
that.
do you know, I don't remember the name of it, but do you know those 3D pens that when you write the gel, the ink comes out and it
I've
creates?
seen them,
Okay.
but
So we
I don't.
covered that almost, I don't know,
Wow.
7, 8 years ago. And it's just like now coming into mainstream. So we're usually a few years ahead of the curve as it relates to mainstream trends.
Okay.
So we're usually looking for the innovators, those, like I said, that are changing the game in their industries, doing something that's out of the box, or something that we feel is really going to impact a community, if not their industry.
So let's get back to the Fitbit story.
I'm trying
Where
to think
were
when
they
we covered that. I would say it was somewhere maybe 2012, 2013. I think we covered that story in we do like a tech toys feature. We used to do that in the past, and it was one of our tech toys. There's so many, like the wearable watches before Apple before Apple decided to do the Apple Watch, we were covering wearable watches. There's so many.
I mean, it's amazing.
Stories.
Yeah. Everybody like with the Fitbit or the Apple Watch, it's like, get your steps, got to get your steps. I had a dinner last night and we drove separately, and the person that I was having dinner with got there before I did. And I see her walking and she's walking, and I'm like, are they closed? She was like, nope, just getting in my steps.
That's right.
I was like, are you trying to find an open door? Like, what is going on here?
No, you got to get to 10,000. You got to get those steps in.
I know. I used to have the jawbone, and I don't know why I stopped wearing it, but now I'm like, it's true. As long as you hit a certain amount of steps, you can stay in shape and kind of go about your life.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend who lives and dies by that 10,000 steps. She will, if it's 8, 9 o'clock at night and she didn't hit those 10,000 steps, she's outside walking around the neighborhood with her Fitbit on.
I know. Well, it definitely I mean, my sister-in-law does 12,000 a day.
Wow.
So She goes past it. But she says, as long as I do 12,000 steps a day, I can kind of eat what I choose.
Okay. I'm gonna have to write that down. I'll be like,
Yeah, and she's like, that way I don't really gain weight and don't have to go to the gym. I'm just hitting my steps. And she really finds, and she's got these competitions with some other people at work. And I said, of course, my answer is, well, what do you get? She's like, bragging rights.
that's
Like,
right. And she can eat whatever she wants.
yeah, exactly. Like, I gotta get one of those. Probably like the Apple Watch, because they're the trendy thing now.
Watch. Right.
And like, it could tell you how many calories you're burning. Because I have no idea. I'll enter my calories in, but then it's like, it usually gets about 6 o'clock, and it's the screw it moment where I'm like, you gotta live.
You gotta live. Right. Now, I'm not as patient about counting calories like that, but I do like, when I take my phone with me, I do check the little heart app to see how many miles. I like looking at the mileage as opposed to the steps.
Yeah, that is assuming you have your phone on you when you're walking.
Yeah. No, I have my phone on me when I'm walking.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm like listening to my music, my audiobooks.
Yeah, it's perfect. Podcast, everything, right?
Podcasts, that's right.
So how do you feel COVID or Corona has changed the face of business?
Ooh, so actually, I just did a workshop today on launching fashion businesses, and one of the things that I had touched on was this post-COVID shift, and how you have to sort of mirror the ideals of your customer.
Okay.
And as a community, we are looking to find our purpose. We are looking for brands that have a purpose, and not just that, but if you are an existing company, looking at your agility, how quickly can you change and adapt at a moment's notice, and developing systems that allow you to be more agile in the future, and to, keep in mind your most valuable assets, right? Because if we are unable to perform, then you have no workers for your business. And so now I also believe that, companies are focusing on mental health and wellness, and keeping that in mind in terms of their employees. So many of us are doing Zoom video calls. And I know this one company that implemented no meetings on Fridays to help with the burnout of video calls. And because there's a different level of energy that you're putting into being on camera for hours and hours on end versus just a phone call, and in a normal office environment, you're typically on the phone, you're not doing video calls every day. And so you're somewhat like on stage for hours on end, and these aren't actors, right? Yeah. And so there's another level of stress for that. So even just being more mindful, owners and leaders being more mindful of their staff, individuals being more mindful not only of themselves, but their neighbors, their coworkers, and the environment. And so companies, I believe, have to shift their business models, their purpose, their mission to mirror those ideals that we now have as individuals.
Right, because I think it's kind of, especially when people so drastically shift to the work from home model.
Yeah.
Some people are hating it, but I would say most people are loving it. There's no commute. They're reevaluating where they're going to live, maybe the city.
Absolutely.
Rip off, and they want to go, because now it's their health and kind of, the whole health and wellness thing, their mental health, and it's the commute can be draining on them. So I think, I'm going to be surprised. It'll be interesting to watch what happens to commercial real estate, because I think a lot of companies are going to start shifting to this work from home.
Well, they're going to say, whoa, we saved a lot of money.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're not providing the snacks. I mean, you could break it down from an entrepreneur, because, I'm an entrepreneur too. You're not paying for the snacks there. You're not paying for like the coffee machine. You're not paying for the water filtration system. I mean, there's a whole, but at the same time, that's all fine and well. And lowering that overhead is great. But I feel that there still needs to be some sort of face-to-face thing, because people need to be with each other.
Absolutely. I do agree. I believe that, Raine Magazine has been a virtual company since the onset, and this is our 13th year. So I'm very used to,
Wow.
having an international team and communicating, through whatever tools that are available. And so that's a comfort space and comfort zone for me.
Yeah.
But we would get together once a quarter at our events and reconnect face to face, when we were doing events. And I do think that's important. I think that it's finding that happy medium and that balance. And not everyone is made to work from home. They really need
Yeah.
that connection, that motivation, that inspiration. So I think companies need to be sensitive to that it's not necessarily one size fit all. So for those individuals that want to be more connected, to have those options built into their business model. So maybe there's a company retreat, or maybe there's a company event, or whatever it is that allows people to reconnect. And some companies honestly may not be able to be exclusively work from home 7 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever it is. So maybe have a hybrid model where you're in the office 3 days a week and then the employees are home 2 days a week, or something like that. So I think, companies are going to have to adapt based on the product and the services that they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I do see this migration to work from home growing. And I see real estate adapting to accommodating living and remote working, together in one. So let's say a WeWork, instead of it just being this remote office, you live upstairs and you come down to work in the office, and then you go back upstairs to your condo or something like that.
I like that idea. It's almost like a WeWork for like people that are working at home.
Yeah.
Where they can just get out, because sometimes you just need to get the heck out of your apartment and just be around people and see people. So that could be the next new thing for sure.
I'm putting it out there, guys.
Putting it out there, right? Well, shit, why don't you take it, right? You might as well. It's a great idea. So where can people purchase your magazine? Is it a digital online?
It's digital and print on demand, rainemagazine.com. So rain, like the rain from the sky, but there's an E at the end.
Uh-huh.
And it's half of Lorraine.
Yeah.
That's where Lorraine comes from. And they could follow me on Instagram at Raine Magazine or Nova by the Sea.
Perfect. Okay, great. And so how much do you charge for the digital publication?
So if they wanted a yearly subscription, the digital, I believe, is $5 per book, and it's a quarterly.
It's quarterly. Okay, perfect. And because really it's kind of an inspirational publication.
Yes, it is. From the beginning, I wanted to create or offer stories, both written and visual stories, that would inspire you to never give up on your dreams. And there were so many days when I was running my fashion company. I launched it. I had 2 babies. I had a 10-month-old and my 22-month-old. And, I was in New York City. I was, still fairly new, a young married couple. And I didn't have the built-in support system or network, in the fashion space. I didn't have mentors. And there were so many days where I just was like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. But again, that little inner kick would say, nope, keep going. And, when I was doing my fashion, it was about helping women find beauty from the inside out. And that motivated me, just seeing how women were affected, by clothing and how it can make them truly feel empowered. And when I did Raine, it was helping other entrepreneurs survive this journey and this roller coaster. And so it was always bigger than me. And I think that's what helped get me through. And knowing I didn't have the mentorship or the community and all these other resources, I felt that if I could provide that in this magazine, then I could help so many more people get up and say, okay, one more day. And you just have to take that next step. You don't have to run the mile, but just take that next step, or just try again one more time, and if reading a story, seeing a video on Raine TV or whatever encourages you to just take that next step, then, we've done our job.
I love that. So yes, you guys go and go to Raine it's rainemagazine.com, correct?
Yes.
Rainemagazine.com. And just it's great to dive into something that's inspirational, especially with all the kind of garbage that's out in the news and so much negativity and the unknown of where we're going to be and what we want for our lives. All of us could use some hope and inspiration. And this is really what my guest today is providing. So don't walk, run to that website and check that out. And hopefully some of you out there will be inspired to create something amazing that can one day maybe even be featured in her magazine. So with that being said, I want to thank my guest today, Nova Lorraine. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And this has been amazing. And thank you all again at home or driving or wherever you're listening for tuning into another episode of Next to Madison. And we'll see you guys next time to find out who's next. Hi, your host, Madison Malloy here. I just wanted to remind you guys to please follow the show on social media at Next to Madison. And if you have any questions or suggestions for the show, or you feel that you would be a great guest on the show and would love to be considered, please feel free to email me at nexttomadison@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms. And I thank you again for listening.